A vast, dark sea stretched endlessly, filled with boats of every size drifting aimlessly. The people aboard sat silently, their memories fading as if being erased by the sea itself. No one knew where they were going, or even that they had already left the world behind. Then, through the mist, a glowing lighthouse appeared, something that shouldn't have existed there. Its light landed on a small boat carrying the protagonist, who sat motionless. As the light grew stronger, his dull eyes began to shine again. The pain from its brightness etched burning marks onto his head, and a voice pulled him back to the world of the living. Suddenly, everything changed. The black sea disappeared, and he found himself at an old desk, staring at a kerosene lamp. The light from the lamp reminded him of the lighthouse. Papers lay beneath his arms, and a strange-smelling drink stood beside him. His thoughts jumped to one thing: his thesis. He remembered working all night in the lab, the chest pain, and the fading consciousness. As he looked at his rough hands, he realized they weren't his. He hadn't just fainted, something deeper had happened. And despite the shock, he felt strangely free. The protagonist carefully studied each rule again, realizing he was trapped in a strange and dangerous place far different from the world he once knew. A silent threat seemed to draw closer, but the last rule hinted at a slim chance of survival. Following its clue, he checked beneath the wooden bed, where he found a hand axe hidden beneath a loose floorboard. It felt strong yet light in his grip, with a sharpened steel head and a sturdy handle that gave him a sense of comfort and readiness. Recalling the journal's warning about a mistake with Cemetery No. 4, the protagonist decided to take action instead of waiting for danger to reach him. He believed that restoring the graveyard might be the only way out. To prepare, he studied the cemetery's layout and memorized every detail. Then he put on a long gray coat with a hood that masked his face and discovered a name badge on it, belonging to someone named William Barron. He also tried to use the telephone, but the line was already cut, likely due to some unknown breach. With preparations complete, he opened the heavy door, stepping into the unknown with full awareness and quiet determination. The gate to Cemetery No. 4 opened slowly with a harsh creak as the protagonist pushed a wooden cart filled with tools used for grave maintenance. Though the place seemed calm at first glance, no threats, no eerie sounds, the environment felt strangely off. The trees looked weak and lifeless, their leaves falling in thick clusters. Unlike other cemeteries, this one had over 60 graves of all shapes and materials, making it feel overcrowded and disorganized. As the protagonist carefully checked the area, he mentally compared the layout with the original grave map he had memorized. With his sharp observation skills, he quickly noticed something disturbing. There was one grave too many. That extra grave stood in a quiet, deeper section, marked by a metal cross. It wasn't supposed to be there. According to strict rules, any unidentified grave must be removed, and the body, if found, moved to a designated area for unknown individuals. Knowing this might not be a simple case, he prepared to act carefully. Leaving the cross untouched, he dug into the mound and soon uncovered a tightly sealed, black, metal coffin. As he opened it, the light revealed a shocking sight: a lifeless man's body, pale green and decaying, with strange, spreading patterns across the skin. The protagonist stood before a tall iron gate, knowing he couldn't climb it without risking being seen by the undead. With caution, he turned down his lamp's brightness and rushed through the uneven graveyard, hiding behind a large tombstone. Listening closely, he confirmed he wasn't being followed. The chilling comfort of the cold stone gave him a moment to breathe. He suspected the gate had been locked by the group mentioned in the manual, possibly as a test or punishment. Either he would solve the undead issue or be eliminated. But something else caught his attention: the strange voice that had warned him earlier. Just as he pondered this, he noticed the soil shifting. Thinking he had disturbed a grave, he raised his hatchet. From the dirt, a bizarre mouth appeared, filled with too many perfect teeth and a black, tongueless void. From within, a single eyeball floated up, staring at him. Surprisingly, the sight didn't scare him. It even felt somewhat safe. When he asked if it came from Cemetery No. 6, the mouth answered. It was a creature from the pet area who had recently become aware and had watched him repair a broken tombstone, an action that left an impression. The protagonist's vision had never been sharper. Even in the dim glow of a kerosene lamp, he could see everything clearly in the dark cemetery. This sudden burst of awareness wasn't normal. It was like his senses had leveled up, bringing him into a new state of clarity and focus. His heart raced with excitement, not fear. With this newfound sharpness and the axe in his hand, he felt ready to face whatever was coming. Before stepping into danger, he mentally reached out to the strange voice guiding him. He wanted to know how to stop the wandering corpse. Cutting off its head or removing its heart wouldn't work, he learned. The creature wasn't moving because of life, it was infected. To truly stop it, he needed to destroy the hidden cause of the infection buried under its skin. Swollen or darkened areas on its body might reveal the source, and his axe was powerful enough to destroy it. He hid behind a tombstone, watching carefully. Then he saw it, a decaying figure, dragging itself forward with terrifying root-like tendrils trailing behind. They looked like they could drain the life from anything they touched. He scanned its body and spotted 4 bulges at the neck, shoulder, waist, and thigh. Grabbing stones from the ground, he remembered his skill from childhood he never missed. Now, with enhanced sight, his aim was deadly. One by one, he threw the stones. 3 hit perfectly, bursting the bulges and releasing foul liquid. But the last stone was struck midair by a lashing root, reacting as if the creature sensed the attack. The roots turned into legs, and the undead crawled toward the protagonist with terrifying speed. But instead of panic, a powerful resolve awakened in him. He knew survival wouldn't come easy. It never was. Escaping from the lab was already a miracle, and now he was ready to pay the price for this chance. Gritting his teeth, he yanked his legs free from the roots, even as barbs tore into his muscle. Blood poured, pain exploded, but he didn't scream. The undead loomed closer, its roots targeting his limbs, ready to lift and consume him. In that critical moment, something inside him awakened. His focus sharpened, everything slowed in his mind as he analyzed every possible move. Rolling, dodging, fleeing, none would work. Only one risky move remained. With a deep breath, he stepped forward, directly into the danger. The undead hesitated for a second, its roots missing their target. But there was no time to celebrate. The deadly mycelium from the creature's mouth surged toward his face. Gripping the axe tightly, he adjusted his stance, channeled every ounce of his strength, and slashed down with a powerful strike. The silver blade cracked through the undead's rotting skull, ending it before it could strike. The protagonist was suddenly jolted awake by a loud voice urging him to submit an overdue report. Still half in a daze, he expected to find himself back in his lab, but instead, he opened his eyes to a cold, dark cemetery. Right beside him lay a lifeless body with a crushed skull, and near his face floated a strange black creature holding a lantern. The creature told him that he had survived a dangerous fight and managed to defeat a mutant. Despite his critical injuries, his body had been treated and stitched up with mysterious black tissue that fully reconnected his nerves and muscles. Although his body still ached, he stood up and remained focused on his unfinished task. He needed to transport the corpse to cemetery number 7 and level any burial mounds left behind. With the creature perched on his shoulder, he pushed the heavy cart through the bumpy path. Upon reaching the eerie cemetery number 7, he was met with a strange scent, like something rotting and burning at the same time. Suddenly, the iron gate creaked open, revealing a tall man in a black suit, cane in hand, his face hidden in shadows. The atmosphere grew heavy as an unknown force seemed to watch every move. The room was quiet except for the crackling of firewood as the protagonist sat across from a man named Wilbert, the one in charge of the strange cemetery. With warm ginger tea in hand, the conversation began. The protagonist asked why an unfamiliar corpse had appeared without any official record. Wilbert revealed something unexpected. The body hadn't been transported. It had been formed inside the cemetery itself. He explained that cemetery number 4, being filled with corpses, had attracted a strange kind of disease that mutates trees. One such mutated tree had turned into a corpse-like form. Even the coffin and tombstone were fake, part of the disease's disguise. Wilbert warned that these pathogens could even take the shape of entire villages or landscapes. The protagonist listened, stunned by how deep the infection ran. Still, a spark of excitement lit his face, as if he had just opened a door into a hidden world. When he asked more questions about why such dangerous corpses weren't simply destroyed, Wilbert hinted at deeper reasons linked to certain benefits they brought, leaving the protagonist both curious and cautious about the dark truth behind the cemetery. The protagonist forced himself to swallow a strange round object, unsure if it would bring him strength or destroy him. The moment it entered his stomach, a strange reaction began. His body started breaking it down like food, but deep inside, a dangerous green structure was hidden. As it moved through his digestive system and entered his blood, intense pain exploded through his body. His blood turned fluorescent green, and his blood vessels began changing in a way never seen in humans, forming plant-like structures. The pain was unbearable, far worse than anything he'd felt before. Just when it felt like his body would give up, his mind was suddenly pulled into a strange experience. He saw life through the eyes of a tree, from a seed to a tall, strong trunk. He felt the roots absorb water, the sunlight turning into energy, and the slow, peaceful growth. But this peaceful memory turned dark as the tree was taken over by an unknown infection, turning into something twisted. At the same time, strange green tendrils burst from the protagonist's body, twisting out from his clothes and even his mouth. His eyes changed, glowing green and pulsing. When the memory ended, everything returned to normal. He was alive. Surprisingly, his body felt stronger. The caretaker, who had been waiting, seemed pleased. He had already prepared vegetables and the protagonist devoured them like he hadn't eaten in days. As he ate, his wounds healed quickly and even the scars faded under new skin. The protagonist stepped out of the cemetery hoping to find sunlight, fresh air, and a lively town, but instead he faced a world far worse than expected. The air reeked of metal and waste, thick with pollution. Smokestacks filled the sky with dark smoke and sunlight barely reached the streets. Hardly any people were around, and those who were visible stayed wrapped from head to toe, breathing low to the ground. The entire place felt lifeless and cold. Despite having slept only 4 hours, the protagonist felt energetic, likely because of the strange condition he carried. On his shoulder, a small black creature stirred. It stretched and greeted him cheerfully, asking for something to eat, specifically grapes, a word it used to hint at eating eyeballs. Instead of reacting with shock, the protagonist recalled that in his own world, people ate similar foods. But before eating, he insisted on getting clean clothes. Wearing tattered, filthy rags and carrying a worn-out appearance, he knew he looked worse than even the poorest people. The streets were filthy and almost empty, with only a few surviving shops clinging to life. Just as he doubted finding anything useful, a tall black Gothic building caught his attention. Strange figures peered out from narrow windows, watching silently. The protagonist had never worn such fine clothing before. Though it wasn't custom-made, it fit him well and allowed easy movement. The lady boss, hidden behind a thin veil, wasn't fully satisfied. She mentioned that if he were already part of the organization and there was more time, she would have arranged a proper fitted outfit. Still, she handed him a temporary outfit, hoping it wouldn't affect how others saw him. She explained that once he passed the organization's test, he would receive a free chance to customize his own clothing, which could reflect his spirit and character. Clothing, she said, wasn't just for appearance, it shaped identity and survival. Grateful, the protagonist left quickly, aware that only 30 minutes remained before the carriage departed. On his way, he stopped at a butcher's shop and bought all the pig and cow eyes, calling them grapes. He fed them to the black meatball creature, who enjoyed them thoroughly. It revealed that its body relied on the juice from these grapes. When asked about its name, it admitted it didn't have one. The protagonist then named it Little Grape, which made the creature visibly happy. Just in time, he reached the crowded carriage, showed a secret card to the driver, and caught his sharp attention. After a long journey, the protagonist arrived at a quiet town called Green Lake. Unlike the busy cities filled with factories and tall buildings, this place was peaceful, filled with nature, fresh air, and open streets. The town had an old-style charm, and just being there made him feel calm, almost like his body could connect with the plants around him. Feeling tired and hungry, he stepped aside into a wooded area. After taking care of his needs, he ate some leaves and tree bark, which strangely gave him energy and refreshed his body. As he returned to the main road, he noticed other carriages arriving, each carrying people around his age. They all looked confident and came from different backgrounds. Curious, he asked the driver, who explained that these people were all here for the organization's evaluation. Some came from strong families, others from training camps, and a few like him were chosen from ordinary places. The group would stay here for 3 days before heading to the organization's main base. As he walked into the town, 3 young strangers approached him. The friendly one introduced himself and invited him to join their group, claiming to have secret knowledge about the assessment. Far from Green Lake Town, a group of well-dressed observers stood atop a mountain, watching the town's activity through advanced tools. Among them, a man expressed concern about the current assessment's intensity, worrying it might be too harsh for participants from notable families. But an elderly man, calm and firm, insisted that only those who could face real pressure were worth investing in. He spoke of falling supplies and the risk it posed to their organization's balance and training. Their conversation revealed a strict screening process, not just for strength but for survival under pressure. Just then, the old man noticed a strange young man walking alone through the town, unlike the others who moved in groups. His clothes were dark, and a strange growth on his shoulder stood out. He wasn't listed on the official record. The personnel manager confirmed he was a late entry, sponsored by a man known for isolation, someone rarely involved in the organization anymore. This unexpected recommendation caught everyone's attention. The young man chose a rundown inn as his base. Despite its poor condition and lack of signs, he seemed to sense something wrong in the town and moved closer to danger on his own. This bold move intrigued the observers, especially the old man overseeing the test. As evening settled in, the free boat rides ended, forcing the protagonist to wait until the next day. The sun sank behind the hills, casting the town in a soft mist as darkness spread. From the window, the protagonist noticed a bright bonfire glowing in the town center. Locals and tourists in masks moved through the streets, carrying candles and lanterns, heading toward the lively celebration. Among them was a team that had once invited the protagonist to join, masked and armed. Deciding to investigate, the protagonist agreed to attend the event, hoping to uncover more clues. Just before leaving, the innkeeper appeared, exhausted and holding a plate of rotting raw fish meant for a room at the hall's end. He silently warned the protagonist not to be fooled by the festive bonfire. The town, he whispered, had broken important rules and was deeply corrupted. If the protagonist wanted to stay safe, he should remain in his room and quietly leave at dawn. When told that staying for 3 days was necessary, the innkeeper warned that outsiders rarely leave unharmed. He urged the protagonist to visit the lake instead, avoid drinking local water, and not join any town events, hinting at hidden dangers beneath Green Lake's cheerful surface. The protagonist returned to the strange shop, where the owner seemed surprised but said nothing. In his room, the protagonist took out a sample of lake water he had preserved. As he examined it, memories of the terrifying moment by the lake rushed back. When he had confronted the sheriff, something horrifying happened. Strange scales and slimy mucus began to grow from the sheriff's chest, pointing to signs of a disturbing mutation. Trying to understand it, the protagonist wondered if it was a common symptom in regions near large water bodies. Just then, the tiny creature hidden in his collar, Little Grape, appeared and explained that this kind of mutation happens often near lakes and seas. Thankfully, the plant growing inside the protagonist gave him some protection, but cuts or open wounds could still pose a risk. Curious, the protagonist analyzed the lake water under a lamp using his enhanced eyesight. What he saw was horrifying: countless parasites floating in the water, quickly laying glowing green eggs. He realized these parasites didn't affect plants at all. While he pondered their purpose, Little Grape suddenly drank the parasite-filled water, claiming it helped gather information directly. According to him, the parasites were under control of a powerful hidden force that tried to connect with him but failed. The protagonist, now staying alone in an old, neglected inn, doesn't mind the mess. His rough childhood in the orphanage taught him to survive in worse conditions. But on the first night, his sleep is interrupted by strange movement outside. The plants inside his body react sharply, warning him of danger. He opens his eyes and notices small green sprouts forming on his arm. Moments later, he hears someone trying to open his door. Quietly, he hides his silver axe and pretends to sleep, planning his escape if things go wrong. The faint sound of footsteps and the old lock clicking open fills the air. A female figure enters, using thick saliva to quietly open the rusty door. She climbs the wall and moves across the ceiling like a lizard, her body covered in slime. Hanging above his bed, she stares at his face silently, drooling slightly. Though she licks his face with a long tongue, the protagonist remains perfectly still, waiting for the right moment. Just as she inches closer, ready to act, footsteps from outside and the innkeeper's voice suddenly break the silence, interrupting the tense moment. The protagonist stepped into the training hall, where tension filled the air. He faced a man who had mocked him earlier, and this time he didn't hold back. With calm focus and steady hands, he countered every move with unmatched control, stunning everyone with his growth. Each strike showed the results of his silent efforts. No longer seen as weak, he made the crowd pause in disbelief. When the arrogant man tried to humiliate him again, the protagonist responded with such calm strength that even the elders watching were impressed. He wasn't just defending himself, he was proving something deeper. The one who once looked down on him was now the one trembling. The battle didn't last long. With a final well-placed move, the opponent fell, unable to stand. Instead of celebrating, the protagonist stayed composed. The audience, once filled with whispers and doubts, now stood silent. Respect had replaced mockery. Even the higher-ups took notice, seeing him in a new light. This wasn't just a personal victory, it shifted the way others looked at him.